Here are ours.
Have a nice stay in Bilbao.
You in our city.
Still telling the same story, Josh?
This is a place.
This is the place?
This is a place. We want to talk about. This is a place.
Welcome to this week's episode of This is a Place podcast. My name is Nate, and with me is a guy who once dated a girl who was cross-eyed, but they broke up because they couldn't see eye to eye. Brandon.
That, and I'm pretty sure she was seeing someone else on the side.
Oh, that's a good one. Ice cream month is now officially over. It is officially August. Ever since I was a little kid, this time of year, when you go to the store and you start seeing school supplies, like back to school sales,
Depressing.
I get a little bit, well, I almost get a little bit of the anxiety or just like then depression as well, because I'm like, crap, school's starting. And that has never gone away. Like even to this day when I see it, even though I don't go to school anymore, but my kids still do. So it's kind of like the official sign that summer is coming to an end and that winter is upon us, right? What does he say in that show? Winter's coming or something like that? Is it Game of Thrones? I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's winter is coming.
winter is coming, which is always sad. Every time winter comes, it's just sad for me because it just means less sunlight, it's usually a lot of snow, even though we didn't have a lot of snow last year. And therefore we're in a drought. But the rain seems to be coming this last few weeks.
And the floods came up.
Yeah, the rains came down, the floods came up. So hopefully all of our friends down south part of Utah are doing okay with all the floods. I think we had a little bit of flooding here along the Wasatch Front, but it wasn't anything like they're seeing in the southern part, at least what I've seen on a little bit of news stories I've watched.
You know, you're sorry to go back to this, but you were talking about it's kind of sad to see school supplies coming, but after that, what they replace the school supplies with is nothing but good stuff.
Right. And I know where you're going with this. I did go over to near your house, the Family Dollar over there in 6200 South. I went over there on Saturday, bought myself a Denver Bronco lawn chair thing, those camping chairs. But small section, maybe half of a shelf, two sections of a shelf already have the fall decor, some Halloween stuff, Halloween candy, and some Halloween decorations. So, and speaking of Halloween, this episode kind of falls in those lines, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say it does. It's very scary to some.
Especially my 10-year-old daughter. I told you that, right?
Her for. Yeah, that's what I was alluding to.
Yes, to do research for this episode, I watched Troll 2, which, surprise, that's what we're talking about today, if you didn't read the headline of the episode. And so I needed to watch it, and it was pretty silly, almost like a bad Nickelodeon / Disney production, right? So I thought I'd be just fine watching it with my daughter. And she was even looking at me like, is this for real? But it was just enough to make it so she didn't want to sleep in her room for about a week or so. But I can't blame her because I watched the original Troll when I was about her age, and it scared the poop out of me as well. And I just watched it the other day to remember what it was like, and you just wonder like why. That one's done a little bit better than Troll 2 as far as production value goes, but it's still pretty silly. But Troll 2 has been known around the world as the best, worst movie ever made. And then you're probably wondering, why are we talking about it? So why are we talking about a troll movie when our podcast has to do with Utah?
Because they decided to film it in Utah.
Yeah, it was all filmed here in Utah. And most of the actors either were living in Utah at the time or grew up in Utah, right? If you just do the Google search for Troll 2 and it brings up the IMDb rating in the Rotten Tomatoes, it scores a 2.9 out of 10 on the IMDb rating, 5% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. And this
If you
is what
look
that
at
was.
though, you have to take the Rotten Tomatoes with a grain of salt at the beginning, because you look at it, it's only showing you the critic score. But if you click on it to see what the audience score is, they gave it a 44%. So slightly below what would be certified fresh.
Right. Which I think the reason you get that 45% is because of the cult following it has, right? But one thing I thought was interesting, because we both brought it up when we watched Troll 2, was like, why do they call it Troll 2 when it has nothing to do with trolls, right?
I don't even think they talk about trolls in the movie. I don't think the word troll is mentioned.
No. So it says it was actually produced under the title Goblins. The American producers and distributors were skeptical about its chances to succeed and decided to market it as a sequel to the 1986 horror film Troll. However, the two films have no connection, and this movie features no trolls. So that's why they did it. It was as a marketing idea to sell more tickets.
You stop short of the whole premise of the movie, which is the best part. And if you hear this and don't think it sounds like the best movie ever made, I don't know what's wrong with you. But the plot concerns a family pursued by vegetarian goblins who seek to mutate them into plants so that they can eat them. I mean, that's some quality writing right there.
Right. It's an amazing film. It was just, you watched it, right?
Yeah. I saw this film back in the early days of Netflix. I'd say earlier days of Netflix, when it went into the streaming world. They had this movie on, and actually a movie was made about the movie called The Best Worst Movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it gained a lot of traction, because, I mean, there wasn't as much stuff on Netflix back then. So that popped up, you watched it, and found out about this wonderful movie. So you had to watch it. But it came out in 1990, but after that movie, it really took off and kind of gave it a new life.
It's been on my list of movies that I need to watch. And I've even started watching it like a few times, and then I would just turn it off because like 5 minutes in, you're like, okay, I can't pay attention. I got to, I'm going to do something else. But because of this episode, it made me sit down and really watch it. And boy, am I glad I ever did that, because it's just so over the top silly that to me, the only way I could explain it, my wife's like asking me why I was thinking this was so great. And I said, it's like a car wreck, right? On the freeway. You've seen 100 of them, but you just can't turn away. You have to see what's going on. So you just keep watching. I was like, oh, I'm going to watch half tonight and half tomorrow, because I was super tired when I started watching it, because we had to do the interview for this episode. But after I got half hour into it, I couldn't turn it off. I stayed up and watched the whole thing, because it's just like, you just have to, just have to. If you got a bunch of high school kids in a film class and you told them they had a week to write a movie and film it and edit it within a week, this is what you'd get. I've seen better productions at road shows, steak road shows.
It's a skill to make a movie this bad.
So bad that it becomes good.
Yeah, I feel like we come across many places that we cover that our good friend Adam the Woo has done filming locations, and he goes and does a video there. And he did the same for this movie. Suffice it to say that this Porterville, Morgan area has changed quite a bit since back then. It was back then a population of 26 people is what the movie says.
Wow.
And I think it's blown up quite a bit since then. Probably everyone moved there because they loved the movie so much and wanted to be where all the action happened. But sadly, a lot of it is changed, and even there's like a church in the movie that's still there, standing partially, but in shambles now.
Read one more thing on Wikipedia that this is kind of funny.
Okay.
about the production. So the script we already talked about, originally titled Goblins, became as a way for the director Claudio Fragasso's wife, Roselia Drudi, to express her frustration with several of her friends becoming vegetarians, which she claimed pissed her off. So the movie came as a way for her to express herself about how vegetarians make her upset. Another thing that I thought it was interesting is that most of the people the production crew, most of them did not speak English. They all spoke Italian. So I think that's part of the reason the film probably didn't film the way they thought it should, because the cast and the crew couldn't really understand the direction they were supposed to be taking. You'll hear why, but let's go back to what makes this movie so great.
There's so many good lines in this movie. It's hard to pick my favorites. There's so much cringe in this movie too.
Like, the acting's horrible, to be perfectly honest with you. And I know I'm not trying to be biased because we interviewed him, but I think George was by far the best actor, or at least one of the best actors in the film. And I don't want to be mean, but his wife, who played his wife in the film, you could tell almost like she was trying to like remember her lines, like in her mind. You know what I mean? You could see her remembering the lines in her mind and then spitting them out. So it sounded like a very poorly production, like a school play or something like that they didn't memorize their lines. But I think George did I thought he was, out of the family, he was one of the better actors. It seemed more real with him than the other ones. So the acting was great, is what I'm getting at. So that's one thing I really liked about the film, was how great the acting was. The special effects were amazing. I just know that I'm never going to probably eat something green Jello or anything like that ever again, just because that seemed to be the ongoing color they wanted to use, was the green. But yeah, green.
Nate, will you sing that song I like so much?
The Row Your Boat?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, and I just watched the new Disney movie. What did you say, Jungle Cruise? And the guy's singing that, Row Your Boat. I'm like, no, that's from Troll 2.
Well, yeah, it makes sense in that movie. But they're in the car and there's all this stuff going on, and the mom says, Joshua, please sing that song I like so much. No, Mom, I don't wanna. Please sing it. Okay. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
But just
think of all the songs they can pick.
Just her eyes too, like the mom's eyes, like the way she always looks like she's
Got
wide
eyes.
open and like.
I think all the people in the movie know this. They know where this movie stands.
Yes. We're not breaking any news to them.
No.
We're not breaking any news to them. So a couple of weeks ago, I was playing in a pickleball tournament up in Cottonwood Heights, and one of the directors there, she was talking to her friend while I was over at the table to ask another person a question, and she's like, "Oh, somebody keeps telling me I need to watch this movie called Troll 2." I'm like, "Yes, do it. You have to watch it." But I said, "You got to hurry." Because unfortunately, we're releasing this episode after it's left HBO Max. So if you had HBO Max the last few months, you could have watched it for free. But I'm pretty confident it will come back on in the near future, or be on another streaming platform. If not, definitely worth the purchase of the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, if you can get your hands on it.
Well, do you have an especially favorite part from the movie you want to share?
It's more just like the acting. I think that's my favorite part, is just the acting. The witch, is that what you call her? Credence was amazing. She was a pretty good actor too. Yeah, she's great. But the kid, when he's riding was it skateboard? Was that what he's riding? And then he like goes up in the attic or something. That whole scene was just amazing. And then like the potluck dinner they had or whatever. It's just the whole thing. You're just like none of it makes sense. It's just couldn't the kid like freeze time or something like that? Am I thinking right?
And that's my favorite part. So we were talking about the green food when they get to, first of all.
Oh, yeah, the best part.
It's called Nailbog.
I hope we're getting to the best part. Please tell me you're getting to the best part. I totally forgot. Sorry.
What's the best part?
The kid and the food.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to share.
Okay, yes, okay.
Okay, so the city they go to do this house swap with these country folk is called Nailbog. And eventually, Joshua, the hero, I guess we'll call him, he figures out that it's Goblin backwards.
Because his dead grandpa tells him, right?
Right, yeah. Oh, and he's talking to his dead grandpa throughout the whole movie, who just will randomly appear, Grandpa Seth. But they get to Nailbog. They have this really strange interaction with the people they're swapping the house with. and they go in, typical country hospitality. They've left all this green food for them, and the family just starts digging in. But they're taking a long time to eat this food, and it gives Joshua enough time to have an interaction with his grandpa, who tells him not to let them eat the food. I mean, if you were in a situation like that, what would you do? How would you stop your family from eating the food?
I mean, there's only one way, and I think he figured it out.
He had to freeze time.
At the freeze time.
And not like get rid of the food, but instead stand up on the table and pee all over all the food.
I had to rewind it and tell my wife, like, come here, you have to watch this part.
And then I love what ensues after that. The father taking the son up and just giving him an earful, talking about how he needs to tighten his belt to keep himself from having hunger pains because of him ruining all their food.
Like, I can do it too. Like, like if you want to do a hunger strike. Is that what you do? Do you tighten your belt when you're hungry? Does that help you not feel hungry anymore? Well, I think that's interesting too. They're doing a house swap, but you're supposed to provide food for the person coming in.
But that's what you're going to get with this movie. All sorts of weird things that just don't make a lot of sense. The whole premise of the movie.
We could sit here for like 2 hours and just go on and on about Troll 2.
Maybe someday we can do we'll do a watch party.
Yeah, like
we'll watch the movie and we'll commentate on it.
Make our comments. Yeah, like the director's cut. The only way or the only advice I have is just that you have to watch it.
So without further ado, let's take a listen to our interview with George Hardy, who played the father, and hear what he has to say about it. So today we are joined by George Hardy, and we wanted to talk with him today because he lived here in Utah for a time and was in a pretty great movie that was filmed here. So thanks for being on our podcast today, George.
Hey, you're welcome. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm actually out watering my plants. Yeah, I just left I was just telling you earlier that I saw my last patient for the week, and now I'm watering my outside plants here in Alabama, and getting ready for the weekend. And yeah, it's good to be on this program. This is probably one of 2,000 that I've done in the last 15 years, 30 years really. Now 31. Troll 2 was made in 1989 in Salt Lake, as you know, and Salt Lake and Morgan and Park City, so Heber.
So I want to ask, so you are a dentist. That's your primary occupation and what you do, right? And you've been practicing that even before the movie.
Right. Yeah. I was actually practicing out in Salt Lake at the time, and one of my patients came in and said, "Hey, you ought to go up and audition for a little B-roll film," and so up in Park City, and I had been doing some acting classes at the time and having fun, on the side doing it, and little that you end up being in a cult hit 30 years later, all over the world know about Troll 2 now. A lot of people do. It's one of the worst films ever made, but I ended up getting the lead role dad in the film.
Yeah, it's crazy how it blew up like it did.
It is. How did y'all know about Troll 2 or hear about it for the first time?
Well, you mentioned earlier that there was a movie made called The Best Worst Movie, and was on Netflix, I don't know, 2009, 2011, whenever it was. And I watched it back then. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to see the actual Troll 2 movie. And I think it was also on Netflix at the time, or I was able to find it some way.
Yeah.
So I watched that, and it's like, man, this movie's something else.
It was really, really amazing that happened to all the actors of Troll 2, and then and then it just blew up like you said, and it became a cult hit. It just keeps getting better and better, like red wine.
So what was people's reaction when it came out originally back in 1990, right?
Wow, I'm trying to think when it was that I saw Troll 2 for the first time. It really was at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater that I watched it in its entirety, because I was too embarrassed to watch it, back in the day when it first came out, which was on a VHS. And yeah, I'd put it in and be so embarrassed by it, I just wouldn't watch it all, So, but not until the phone calls came in, years later, did I know that it was a cult phenomenon, really.
So when you accepted the role and reading the script, did you kind of get the sense that it was going to be not the best movie ever made?
Well, we really couldn't understand the script, to be honest with you, because it was Italians writing to English and translated, and it was a straight translation. So we really couldn't decipher the script or know what it really meant, or we were just trying to figure it out,
Wow.
And then the scenes that we did were, the last scene of the movie was filmed the first day, so there was no continuity to the script. It was pretty tough to figure it out in the day. It really was.
So what was it like being on the set and doing the filming with the language barrier and not understanding what was really going on?
We were really just all trying to do the best we could. We were all amateur actors, and everybody was, most of the people there in Utah were, a lot of us had never acted in a film before, and they just picked who they felt, and it just was a train wreck that happened, and so we all just did the best we could and tried to decipher, like I said, this discombobulated script, and tried to figure out the translation. And we'd say, do you want us to say it this way, the way it's written? And they go, yes, say it exactly like it's written. And we went, oh my gosh, So we just didn't know what we were making at the time. We'd hope for a sequel, but I don't know if that'll ever really happen.
Troll 3, we need to get asking for that, and then hopefully see it, because it kind of left us with a cliffhanger at the end, so we need to know what happens.
Yeah.
What brought you to Utah originally?
Well, postdoctorate work. As a general dentist, I went out to do a children's dentistry program at the Primary Children's Medical Center, and then I ended up staying there for 10 years. And the last year of my 10 years there, 9 or 10, I think, is when I auditioned and got the part to this film. And it was a 3-week shoot in August of '89. And it was a great experience, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and after Utah, you moved back to your hometown in Alabama?
I did, yeah. Got married and moved back here. And, I live in a small textile community called Alexander City. It was the home to Russell Corporation. Russell Lands now owns a lot of the lake property on the lake. I live on a lake called Lake Martin, which has been voted as one of the 10 most beautiful lakes in America. So it's a beautiful area. And this instead of Russell Mills, which is a textile, it was the largest manufacturer of athletic team apparel back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Warren Buffett bought it out, and now Fruit owns Russell, and so our little town went up 15,000 and went to with 7,000 or 8,000 employees all working for Russell to only 300. So now it's become more a retirement community on beautiful Lake Martin. So I practice dentistry here, and I've been here for about Pete's. I've been here almost 30 years now. Yeah, wow.
Would you ever come back to Utah?
Well, I visit often. Yeah, in fact, my niece lives out there now. She followed my footsteps and lives in Salt Lake, and she loves it out there. Yeah, I really miss the mountains. I'll tell you that. I to this day, I still have dreams of the Wasatch for sure. I did a lot of hiking in the mountains when I was there.
Well, you did eventually pick up some acting and in that industry again. What have you done since the movie, or what are you working on?
Well, a lot of filmmakers are cult movie lovers. They love So Bad It's Good films. And so some directors through the years have called and invited me to do little cameos here and there. But in about 2014, I get a phone call from a director named Tyler Russell. And Tyler invited me to come down to Mobile, Alabama, and film in this film called Here Comes Rusty, where I play Bruce Hampton and the Dirty Dinosaurs. You can Google him. I play Fred Willers in the film, and a few other folks you might would know. But I played Bruce's dad in a little cameo one day shoot. And Tyler met me and says, "Hey, George, I think you should play the lead in a script I've written called Texas Cotton. And I read it and I said, I think I can handle it. So sure enough, I played the lead in another film called Texas Cotton. And it's on Amazon Prime and a lot of platforms. And I played the lead actor of that and really enjoyed doing that. So I had really all my feet back in the water again after 30 years of shooting Troll 2. And then Tyler wrote a crazy script. And then I went over to Germany, Baden-Baden, invited over there to play Michael Waits from Troll 2 in this crazy film called Under Control, which is produced by a German actress, Eva Habermann. And Eva then teamed up with me, and we made with Tyler another film called Cyst, which is about to be released around Halloween this year. COVID kind of got us, and it is really crazy. I play a dermatologist, and 1962. It's kind of a Twilight Zone-ish, crazy, wild, gross horror comedy done with a lot of class. It's hilarious. And so I play Dr. Guy in Cyst. And then I just recently filmed in Nashville with another writer-director who's got a film in Tribeca this year with Mickey Reese, and a film called Country Gold, and I play Garth Brooks' dad in there. So it's kind of fun playing all these, funny characters. And, when I'm practicing dentistry, it's great, but to do this on the side is really a gas, really fun.
And all the success coming from just you being in this, like you said, B-roll movie from 1989.
Yeah, exactly. Being this crazy wild film.
So you mentioned earlier that you took some acting classes and then took the role of Trolls 2. Did you grow up thinking, hey, I want to be an actor, or were you in drama club, or did just all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I kind of wanted to. I did really, as I said in Best Worst Movie, I think I really did want to be an actor. I thought I could do it. I was a college cheerleader, which was fun, and exercise instructor and all that. It was all that in the 80s, but I always felt I wanted to try to be an actor, which I know a lot of people feel that it just felt right for me. So I was always a clown and class clown, but after doing what I've done now and really filming with professionals, and a lot of these professionals would be people that you would know from Walking Dead or No Country for Old Men, or still, some sitcoms on TV, or I've worked one-on-one in hand with them, and even other horror film stars. That's their profession, and that's what they do all the time. Whereas I'm a practicing dentist, they're all the time. They go from film to film to film. They've been in a couple hundred films. So for them, they have a maybe 5 or 6 day shoot, and they're in and out. And I highly respect what they do. As far as a B-listed actor, and I put them up against any A-listed actor any day. In fact, they're probably better than a lot of the A-list actors out there. So you would know a lot of their faces. And I'll tell you, when you are one-on-one with someone like Gene Jones from No Country for Old Men, you go, oh my gosh, I'm with the real deal here. You just have such high respect for what they've learned and how they've learned what they do in their profession. And I've just become a real admirer of actors. It's much harder than you would think it is. And, I've learned a lot about myself through jumping off a cliff, as I did in Texas Cotton. I went, oh God, what have I got myself into? Being a lead in a film, that was really, I was in 56 or 57 scenes. And so,
wow,
learning those lines, it's interesting too about that, learning the lines, and that is, and owning them, and really knowing the other actors' lines. In other words, I needed to memorize, 90 to 120 pages of script And in dental school, we would probably study 4 days in advance for a big exam, a big biochemistry exam or something. But I'll tell you, this is just about as demanding, of memorizing and, just owning something.
You mentioned, sometimes they're not the A-list actors, but a lot you've worked with would be recognized. Do you get recognized quite a bit just going about your day?
Well, I mean, for the most part, if there was recognition, it would come from Troll 2, which has been on HBO. And I made Troll 2 when I was 34. And now, gosh, now 32. I'm 66 now. So, I kind of a white-headed old silver guy now, So, yeah, every so often, people, I was at an Auburn football game, which I'm only about 45 minutes away. And somebody approached me from the back and went, "Oh, I've heard that voice. That's got to be, George Hardy from the dad from Troll 2." They were huge fans, obviously. And I was with a buddy of mine, and it about freaked him out when he saw that happen. But not often. But where I live locally, everybody kind of knows that I was in Troll 2. And now that I've been in other films, they kind of get they dig it. Really, it's kind of fun for them.
Well, I was going to say, I definitely recognized your voice when you first started talking. So
Yeah.
we just watched the movie last night again to refresh, but
You're a sweetheart.
I was going to ask George. Hey, George, do you have like either a favorite or worst part of the movie that you enjoy, or a line or anything like that makes you chuckle?
Oh my God, it kind of changes from. I just found out, you guys, sad news, that Don Packard, who played the drugstore owner, passed away in the last few weeks. And Don, he was just the played the creepy drugstore owner in Troll 2. So I'm gonna have to dedicate the scene when he talks about eggs, and he goes, "Blah, eggs," So I'm gonna say that would be my favorite scene now, knowing that I'm thinking about Don Packard, who played the drugstore owner in Troll 2.
yeah, it looks like he still lived in Holiday, is where he
Did it?
He was still here in Utah.
Yeah. I think most actors are. And believe it or not, Grandpa Seth called me about a month ago, and he lives in Seattle. And he's so sweet to call. Gosh, Don played the grandpa Seth, in Troll 2, and he was 56 when he made that film. When we made Troll 2, and now he's, 56, 30 years. He's 86 or 87 years old now. Wow. Yeah. And Don, I think I counted up, would be 94. Would have been 94. So the Sheriff Gene Freak and Don Packard, I think, are the only two that have passed away from our whole clan that were in it. I kind of been the social chairman from it still, even after making Best Western Movie, of which I rounded up all the actors through numerous phone calls.
Well, that's cool. You still stay in touch with some of them.
Yeah. Of course, sweet old Darren Ewing, who played Arnold. Oh my God! If Darren Ewing, surprise guest star in Sist with me, so he's my trusty assistant. And I can't wait for y'all to see Sist when it comes out. It's gonna rock and roll everybody. It's like I said, it's a gross comedy horror. And once you get past the first 5 minutes, you kind of become desensitized to Dr. Pimple Popper on steroids.
That's like that.
I am Dr. Pimple Popper on steroids in Sist.
Well, George, we really appreciate you taking the time again to talk with us.
Man.
That is like your 2000th episode. But
it is. I don't care. I really don't. I mean, anybody from Utah, I am willing to have an interview with, because they're my homeboys. On the film. Because you guys probably weren't even born when Troll 2 was made. Like I said, it ripens like a glass of red wine, and it just keeps getting better and better. And so the next generation will watch it, and the next one. Yeah, and you kind of wonder what is bad about it. Greg Sestero from The Room is also in Sist with me, and it's so great to be with Greg and get to know him. Because he's in another So Bad It's Good film. Of course, he wrote The Disaster Artist, which James Franco and Seth Rogen attached
that's a
to
good one.
Yeah. And so Greg's brilliant and put anything down on paper and write it beautifully. And so he's written this great book called The Disaster Artist, which, I've read and then watched the film, of course. And we both talked about being in this, just this train wreck, and so both of us kind of feel like Deborah Reed does the Credence, the wicked witch, and Troll 2. And she had one great statement. She says, "Hey, if you can't be in the best movie ever, why not be in one of the worst?" And so that really happened to us. And so I think there's 13, there's 13 individuals that were in Troll 2 that would all have cartoon characters made after them, and blow up balloon dolls, which have I'm on trading cards and things like my faces and all that.
Nice.
And kind of this train wreck that happened for being in such a bad film. But then Michael Stevenson, who played my on-screen son, he and I organically put together and made the documentary, of course, Best Worst Movie. Michael says, "Hey, you know what? Who's to say Troll 2 is a bad film? It really is kind of a good film, And you really kind of think about it. It's methodically and mysteriously written, and I think that Rosella Drudy and Claudio Fragasso, I think, are brilliant filmmakers, and they, of course, live in Rome, and I love them to death, and try to stay in touch with them. Of course, there's always been this dream about making Troll 2 Part 2, but the language barrier has made it difficult, and of course, now with COVID hitting, things have just, the world's turned upside down. You never know what could happen, but who knows? In the next 5 years, some of us could pull together and reappear in Troll 2 Part 2,
Well, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Come and do it again in Utah. We can make some cameos in it if you need some extras. Whatever.
We'll get you out there. I'm sure that'll happen. Hey, guys, thank you so much.
But that was awesome that George was willing to come on and talk to us. Getting a big celebrity like that on our podcast. And I think it's awesome too, like what he said, that he was just a dentist, right? And started taking some acting classes, and then went and booked himself a lead in a film. And I'm actually kind of excited to see those couple movie projects that he's working on, see how those turn out.
Oh yeah, me too.
But it would be really hard to top Troll 2 though.
I just really hope there's a Troll 3. We can really get the resurgence, the full story, because it leaves you with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, maybe we could do a GoFundMe and raise $1,000 to produce our own Troll 3 movie.
That's not a bad idea.
We could make the second worst movie ever.
That is not a bad idea, Nate.
I did have a few friends that were like, "Oh, what episodes are you working on?" And I'm like, "Oh, we have a guy from Troll 2 coming on." And they're like, "I love that movie." And I didn't think about it, but they're thinking of Trolls, the cartoon movie. Because a couple of them like, "But there's no way you know about Troll 2, But I didn't think I'd till I had left the conversation with them. But so we're not talking about Justin Timberlake. We're talking about Troll 2.
Not Trolls World Tour.
All I can say is that I really want to hear from a few people who have seen this movie and what their thoughts are. And then if you haven't seen it, please go watch it and let us know what you think about it.
Yeah, and let us know what your favorite line or scene is from the movie. Really eager to hear about that. But I'm going to say to you, Nate, I order you by the sacred power of the magic stone, go back to hell.
Powers of evil are very strong here. I must leave.
Thanks for listening to This Is a Place podcast.
See you next week.